Hi, this is Imre Galambos, Professor of Chinese at the University of Cambridge. And this video is about what you should do when you're asked to revise a research article that you have submitted to an academic journal. That is, about improving your article to the point of being good enough to be accepted and published by the journal. And I also hope to show you that not being accepted in the first round is not a huge problem. It's not a verdict that disqualifies you from the race. Quite to the contrary, it is an invitation to continue the race, to keep pushing until you manage to turn your article into a form that is acceptable by the journal. So if this is something you're interested in, then keep watching. But before that, please hit the subscribe and like buttons to help the channel and to be notified when new videos are uploaded. So let's dive in. Publishing your research article is one of the most important things you do as an academic. It is also one of the criteria used to assess you when you apply for jobs, promotions, grants, anything. If you're at the beginning of your academic career, publishing your first articles is almost like an initiation into the world of scholarship. By publishing your research, you become part of this community. You earn the right to be called an academic. And at the beginning, when you have not done this yet, various parts of the publication process can be daunting. And among these, the most uncomfortable one is probably when your article is not accepted, but is either rejected or requires major revisions. I remember that when I was still a graduate student, I once submitted an article to an editor of a prestigious journal and was told to rearrange the whole thing in a certain way, so that it looked more like an actual article, which apparently it wasn't. And what did I do with that advice? Absolutely nothing. Which was, of course, a very elegant way of going about it, also very comfortable and easy to do. But it resulted in me not publishing a paper I have actually already written. So when I first read the editor's email, I initially panicked that my paper was not accepted. I basically failed to register the other part of the message, which was that they actually thought that the paper was good enough to be reshaped into a form that was acceptable by the journal. That it was not in the form that fit the journal was, of course, no coincidence. Not having published anything before, I simply had no idea what an academic paper should look like. It would have been a miracle had I done it the right way. But the really odd thing was that when I was told this, I did not get the message. I heard a no instead of a yes. I think the reason for this was sheer ignorance on my part, my not understanding that this was not a binary yes or no type of decision, and that most published articles have gone through the exact same process, except that I only see the final result. And this was partly because we were never taught how to write for a publication. That was a knowledge we were expected to learn once we have gone through graduate school, once we have moved on from being a student. But I do think that times are changing. And these days you're increasingly expected to have published a few things when you apply even for a postdoc, not to speak of a teaching job. In some places, like in China, a certain number of publications is actually a formal requirement of getting a job. So let's look at this a little bit closer. When you resubmit your article, that means that you were either asked to make major revisions or were rejected with the possibility of resubmission. In either case, it is not a straightforward no. Sure, it's not a yes either, but kind of like a yes down the road, a yes in the future. Basically, when the decision is anything other than a definite rejection with no possibility of resubmission, it usually means that acceptance is a bit further down the road. It is a bit like putting your foot in the door, and so the door cannot be shut anymore. Once you have this first communication from the editor, unless it is a firm rejection, you have put that foot in the door, and now you have to work on getting more and more of you through that door. At this point, your job is to follow the guidelines, listen to the feedback, and make changes accordingly. You see, a submission to a journal is not a test which you either fail or pass. Your article does not have to be accepted immediately to be a good article. This is not a video game where you die if you mess up, and then you're out of the game. Instead, publishing in a peer-reviewed journal is a game where you typically can continue fighting and inch your way towards your goal. You only lose if you stop, so you have to keep going. So what do you do when you're requested to make major changes? Don't do what I did, that is panic and then go into denial, pretending the issue doesn't exist. Yes, such emails can hurt, especially if you've spent so much time working on the article. And presumably this is also the topic that is close to your heart. But instead of falling into despair, perhaps you can take a step back and spend a day or two not thinking about it and come back to this email once you have gotten used to the idea a little bit more. And then look at what the message actually says. What are they asking for? What types of changes they want? Do they want you to improve your grammar and bibliographic style? Do they want you to add more references to formal research, to add dates for historical figures, or to add a couple of paragraphs introducing the sources you rely on? Because all of these things can be done relatively easily. The reviewers simply object to the fact that these things have not been done already. Sometimes you may even get a 6-page long list of mistakes by a conscientious reviewer, which again feels kind of bad, but in reality it saves you a lot of time because all you have to do is go through each mistake and correct it. The hardest things to deal with are objections to your general methodology, comments about factual mistakes that may impact your overall argument, or requests to change the entire structure of your article. But even these can be done. The important thing is that you're told what you need to do. You're given feedback by scholars who work on the same or similar topic. So what should you do with their advice? And you probably know what I'm going to say. You should listen to it. What you should not do is to ignore it. The other thing you should not do is give up and walk away, like I did many years ago. Actually, I don't think I gave up. I just pushed the whole thing into the back of my mind so I would not have to deal with it at the present, and then promptly forgot about it completely. In retrospect, I know what I should have done. I should have talked to somebody and asked them to interpret the editor's remarks for me, to tell me how to proceed with this, which is kind of what this video is about. And if that wasn't enough, perhaps I should have talked to the editor too, ask him to be more specific, tell me what to do. And I should have continued working on this article until it got published. Because the problem was not my research, and the journal was interested in my findings. Instead, the editor took issue with how the article was shaped. And not all of it, just the framing. So what I should have done was to sit down and spend a few days reorganizing the beginning and the end. Because not having done this, my ignorance about what a proper academic article should look like stayed with me. Although I moved on from this project, I still had no idea how to write a proper article. Instead, what I eliminated was the immediate pressure to do anything about it. So essentially, I sacrificed my article so I would not have to deal with this uncomfortable issue in the present. But the problem itself remained because I still didn't know how to structure an article. Today, I realized that the proper way to do about this would have been to resolve the issue. And so I would have learned much sooner how to write articles that can be published in journals. And this is one of the major lessons in this. When you improve an article, you're not only improving that one article, but you're also upgrading your skill set. Knowledge and skills are cumulative. You learn to do something once, and next time it will be easier, and the 5th time it's going to be automatic. So when asked to revise articles, be aware that by doing this, you're learning skills that will serve you for the rest of your career. And next time it will be easier to do this. Of course, next time there will be other problems, but you will likewise learn to handle those as well. And so gradually you will become a better writer and a better scholar. Alright, let me know if you have any questions or if there are topics you want me to talk about. Thank you for watching and see you next time.